Just want to let you know that that's in there. So if anybody goes out and starts reading about it, that is technically an enemy aircraft, so it counted for the record, apparently.
Do weather balloons count?
I don't know.
Probably
honestly.
not, yeah.
They're probably easy targets. They're probably training targets.
That'd be nice for them.
Yep. So there's interesting things here about Colonel Toome, though. One of which is that there were 2 images of his aircraft that were circulated among U.S. forces.
And these were images, just to be clear, they were taken by other pilots, right?
At least one of them that I know of.
Engagements, right?
I believe one of them was actually on the ground. Like somebody snapped a picture while it was sitting on the ground. But I'm not 100% positive because I couldn't find these images. I could find images that were similar, but I couldn't find the same ones with the same, at least I don't think I saw them with the same plane numbers, because the planes had identifier numbers on them, as all aircraft do.
Uh-huh.
And the MiG-17 had the number 3020 on the nose, and it had 6 stars on the nose. And for people who aren't familiar with this, the number of stars on the nose means the number of kills. And then there was another image that was a MiG-21 that had the number 4326 on the nose, along with 13 stars. So that's a lot of kills. But they're 2 different aircraft, and that's part of the confusion in this story, because that's not typically the way a pilot would operate. They would fly a plane. They wouldn't fly multiple kinds of planes.
No, not usually. Not unless, all the MiG-17s went away, and then it's time to move Colonel Toome up to a 21. But,
right.
Yeah.
In a kind of desperate scenario.
Yeah.
And it represents the number the aircraft took down, not the pilot, right? The stars?
Typically, that's not the case.
It's how many the pilot took down?
Typically, it's the number that the pilot takes out.
So, I mean, really what we're saying here is later, this awesome pilot may have been flying a better plane.
MiG-21.
Maybe.
Right.
It's possible.
Yeah, I wonder how that works. I assume that, like, say, if you did fly, got 6 kills with your MiG-17,
and they were like,
and then you graduate to a 21.
Do they transfer those
transfer
kills?
the 6 kills over to the nose of your new plane? Yeah.
I have a feeling that I know the answer, but I'm going to save that till later.
Okay.
It seems like
just to dry out the suspense.
Seems like it's only fair to transfer them over. But,
seems like that to me too. But and then if not, like maybe he did have the 20
MiG-21.
20 kills, 19 kills.
Yeah.
6 and 13 would be 19.
That would be a lot. Yeah.
Let's jump back to the official narrative here. By the way, what I've been trying to run through is kind of the generally agreed upon official narrative of these things that are in the story. And then when we get into theories, we'll parse into bits and pieces of it more deeply, as we tend to do. But officially, Toome's career would come to an end, and that date would officially be May 10th, 1972. On that day, Randy Duke Cunningham and his co-pilot Willie Irish Driscoll, who were both U.S. Navy pilots, and they had recently just graduated from the then newly formed Top Gun program. Again, Tom Cruise.
All the way to the danger zone.
Well.
Oh, man, I hate that movie.
Yeah. So these guys had graduated from the program. They're now in the air. It's May 10th. Oh, and people may recognize the name Randy Cunningham because he was a U.S. congressman. And in 2005, he was, not so happily for him, convicted of taking millions in bribes and sentenced to 8 years in prison. So if he was your congressman, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's too bad for him. Right? So I guess he would have gotten out by now. I have not heard anything about Randy Cunningham. I remember when he got sent away.
I'm sure that he's done a lot to keep it that way.
I was just saying, that's not surprising that we haven't heard anything from him.
Well, I hope he was smart enough to squirrel away some of those millions of bribes.
I have a feeling that's not the case. But anyway, pre-bribe Cunningham and Irish Driscoll were both in a F-4 Phantom on that day, and they were in a mission which was near Hanoi when they encountered several Vietnamese People's Air Force aircraft, and it was a group of MiG-17s. As you can guess, a dogfights ensued. All but one of the MiGs were taken out, and then this fight takes place between the remaining MiG and Cunningham and Driscoll. Now, Cunningham's F-4 Phantom, it had air-to-air missiles, but of course it's faster, but it can't do well at slow speeds. MiG-17s are better at slow speeds, but it has no missiles. All it's got is 37 caliber and another, I can't remember what the other lighter caliber gun is.
Probably a 50 cal or
something like that. It's got cannons
Soviet
on
equivalent.
it. So it's shooting guns.
And I don't remember. I don't think the F-4 Phantom had a cannon, did it? I don't believe it had any guns.
I don't remember that when I was reading. I think that it relied a lot on its missiles because a lot is made out about the fact that in the early years of the conflict, the Phantom was plagued with tons and tons of issues of faulty air-to-air missiles, either not launching or just launching and not tracking their targets. It was a giant fiasco for the Defense Department. So I feel like it had the missiles, but I don't remember off the top of my head, so I don't want to commit to that because I'm probably wrong.
Yeah, I think it had it was a fighter bomber. I think essentially you could drop bombs and fire missiles, but I don't think it had a cannon. But
well,
I don't know.
If we're wrong, somebody will let us know.
If you're one of those guys that flew one of those things, well, send us a note.
Yep. So what happens? Tries to slow the fight down so it can do better. Cunningham has to hit the afterburner, or not the afterburner, hit the gas so he go fast. So this goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until he's eventually able to lock on with a Sidewinder missile and take out this final MiG-17, which he says he watched burst apart in flames and fall to the
ground.
The ground. Thank you. I was going to say the canopy, and that wasn't right.
No.
But it fell to earth below him. He and his co-pilot, though, wouldn't escape unscathed. Very shortly after that, in that same flight, actually, they would be hit by a surface-to-air missile. They would fly out over the South China Sea, where they would bail out and then eventually be rescued, of course.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens to the hero who is taking out the scourge of the North Vietnamese skies, Colonel Toom.
If you're lucky, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Usually not actually what happens.
No.
Yeah.
No. There's sharks and stuff. Well, Cunningham T tells U.S. intelligence that he saw the number 3020 painted on that MiG-17, and so U.S. military intelligence says, yes, you took out Colonel Toom. Good job, buddy. Not only did you just get upgraded to ace status, because that was your kill, but you took out this bad guy. Yay! And
legendary status for him.
Toom disappears from the war.
Yeah, so there you go. So otherwise, you might sort of doubt his story about seeing that number on the nose of the plane, but then if Toom did suddenly, not show up anymore, I guess you got him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Took his toys and left.
Yeah.
Basically. Years later, there is a Hungarian man named, I hate pronouncing this guy's name, Dr. Istvan Toppersev, and he would go to Vietnam to research the pilots of the Vietnamese People's Air Force, supposedly, and we'll get into the supposedly later on.
And I assume by years later you mean when Hungary was still under basically Soviet domination. It was still a communist state.
I believe while they were still a communist state. This appears to, from the reading that I've done, been before people from the West were let into Vietnam, because people from the West were held out of the country for many, many decades.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But eventually, our historians would be allowed in, and they would come in and ask the same question as the Hungarian doctor, which is, hey, so who was Colonel Toom? To which they would all get the same answer of...
Who?
Yeah. We don't know.
Who are you talking about? There's no record of this guy. We don't know what you're saying. And for a guy who is supposedly as good of a pilot and as good at taking down enemy, it seems really weird that he dropped out of the records completely and entirely.
Maybe they sent him on a super secret mission and they had to erase his name from the whole record.
Maybe.
Yeah, that must be it.
Save that for theories.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
So this flying ace, this war hero, and believe me, the Vietnamese love to celebrate their war heroes, he disappears. So it brings up what is our mystery, which is, A, why is he not in the record? And B, if he was a real person, who was he?
Yeah.
So
why was he so super secret? Because if war hero, you'd think they'd be celebrating him and have statues of him and all kinds of stuff.
Abso-friggin-lutely.
Yeah, you'd think.
All right, so that's our mystery. So let's get into the theories.
Okay.
But first, let's take a quick break.
Support for today's show comes from Grove. Grove is an e-commerce company that I like because they make it easy for me to find the best natural products, take care of myself, my home, my cat, and to make sure I never run out of my stuff. They've got a lot of really good products. Mrs. Myers, 7th generation, real simple, Toms, etc., etc. And I really like the Mrs. Myers because it doesn't make me break out and it looks really good in my bathroom. As I said, I really like Mrs. Myers a lot. There's also this really cool laundry detergent that's concentrated. It comes in a recyclable container. And what I really like about it is it's a concentrate. It costs less to ship, and it's smaller. It takes up less space in my house, so it's really the best. Another great thing about Grove is they deliver everything right to your door when you want it. They offer free shipping and free returns, no questions asked. And they have Grove Guides, which are always available to answer your questions or add items to your next order if you run out. So sign up for Grove Collaborative at grove.co. That's grove.co/sideways. And you'll receive a $30 Mrs. Myers gift set for free with your order of $20 or more. That's grove.co, not com/sideways. Grove.co, sideways. You won't regret it.
And we're back.
Yeah.
So theory number one.
Yeah.
There's a theory?
What's that?
There's a theory?
Well, actually, believe it or not, I've got, 4 or 5 in here, never mind your ghost theory. So, I've got a lot of theories in here.
Yeah, the secret agent theory.
Yeah, don't forget about the secret agent theory.
Yeah, no, actually, this one is actually all over the internet, especially on, aviation sites and Vietnam veteran sites.
This particular theory?
This particular mystery.
Oh, yeah. I got a lot of good information out there.
There's a ton of information out there, although a lot of the same information, but,
And a lot of arguing.
Yeah.
Because that's what forums are all about.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So theory number one is that Colonel Toom was, in fact, a myth created accidentally by the U.S. Signals Intelligence Group.
They got their signals crossed. Not good for a SIG int to get their SIGs crossed.
No. So basically what it is that the theory is that he never actually existed, and they made him up by accident, and there's a couple of different ways that this could happen. Now, of course, as we talked about earlier, to be a fly, this is all backstory. I think we've covered some of this, but sometimes people miss these bits, so I just want to recover a little bit of territory, which is you have to take down at least 5 enemy aircraft to become a ace.
Yeah.
And the Vietnamese had over a dozen aces, like we talked about, whereas the Americans only had 1 ace. That was Randy Cunningham and Irish Driscoll. I really feel bad. Willie, that was his name, Willie. Keep calling him Irish. I feel racist. But it's fun.
Oh, come on, admit it, Steve. You love it.
No. Yeah. But so the thing is that it was the reason that there were so many aces is for a U.S. pilot. You did a year of duty. That was your tour, was you spent a year in country, and then you would rotate back home and you would do training and you'd be stationed somewhere.
And by the way, in that year, you would not do 365 missions.
No.
Nowhere near that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But the thing was is that you guys could ask to come to be stationed back in Vietnam, and occasionally that happened, but the vast majority of them did not. So
it seems like it was pretty miserable over there for the most part.
It was not. Well, nobody really enjoys war. A few weirdos do, but they're thankfully the minority. But the thing is that these guys, so they get about a year to try and rack up, 5 kills. Of course, for the North Vietnamese pilots, they're home.
They were there for 10 years, not
they're
1
there
year.
for the whole war, so they have a lot of flights and a lot of time to rack up all these kills. So that's the reason that there's kind of that imbalance in terms of the number of aces from one side to the other. Another reason that there would, and this is a factor as to why there's so many North Vietnamese aces, is ground-based radar. remember that planes at that time, today we're all used to the fancy modern fighter craft we see in the movies, and they've got radar built in. They've got every kind of device built in that they can to see around them much farther than the pilot can just see with the naked eye.
Well, plus we've also got airborne radars beyond theirs, like the AWACS and stuff like that.
There's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But that is not so much the case in the late 60s and early 70s. And MiG-17s didn't have anything built in, so they were reliant upon what the naked eye could see as well as ground-based radar. And the U.S., we knew about the ground-based radar, but the U.S. forces never actually went after those ground-based radar installations, as in to take them out and handicap those MiG-17s, because there were other nations helping.
Yeah.
We talked about the Soviets were there because they were helping with training and equipment, and they were coming and they were going to those radar installations and helping out.
Yeah.
The Chinese were doing the same thing because, again, Soviets and the Chinese are both under communist governance, and the North Vietnamese, they wanted to unify their country, and communism was the system they agreed upon was the right one.
Yeah,
so they're all working together.
It's the wave of the future for humanity. Yeah,
well,
it is.
But this means that you help your buddy out.
Well, of course, and that's and that's what they're trying to do. All kinds of countries all around the world, help them to become commies. But yeah, and of course they didn't want to bomb the radar stations because they might kill Ivan.
Or they might kill a Chinese advisor, and that just opens up a whole nother can of worms of conflict.
Well, this has been a big bone of contention about Vietnam forever. Is that our side was way too reticent about stuff like that. I mean, we should have bombed those stations and taken out those radars. I
understand what you're saying from the standpoint of to quote-unquote win the war.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah. I mean, we should have done that, And if the Soviet squawk, you just say, I'm sorry, you guys were in a war zone. What did you expect? Yeah. But of course, and this is the old saying goes, generals always fight the last war. And the previous war, of course, had been Korea.
Yep.
Remember what happened there, is after initially getting knocked on our heels, we came back big time, invaded, and were really on the verge of triumph in North Korea, and then the Chinese invaded, and suddenly we're talking about the war got a lot bigger. And so, like I said, that colored all the thinking about Vietnam, it's really a shame, too, because, we could have probably had a better outcome in Vietnam if we hadn't had that sort of that tit-for-tat mentality and that reticence about attacking the North that they, by the way, didn't feel towards us.
Yeah, well, yeah. They just didn't like us.
Yeah,
unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
So this is going on, and this is one of the factors why the MiGs were
they were
quite
doing better,
effective because they had that other form of detection out there. There's some things that also lean into the theory of this guy didn't exist. The next one is that the name Tomb or Tune, and by the way, the spelling on these is T-O-M-B, Tomb, like a crypt, a tomb, or Tune,
as in cartoon,
T-O-O-N, as in cartoon.
Yeah.
Neither of those names are Vietnamese names.
Apparently,
they're not in the lexicon at all.
Yeah, there were at least one or two pilots named Tuan, but like T-U-A-N would be the transliteration Tuan, which maybe over the radio could come out sounding kind of like Tune,
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't think any of those guys scored anywhere near 13 kills.
Not that I'm aware of. There's a big list. You can actually go on the internet and find this giant list. I mean, I remember Devin and I were talking about the names and how similar they were as you drop down the list.
Yeah.
But none of them really seem to fit the moniker of this guy. Now, there are people that believe that this is what happened, is that U.S. signals intelligence is listening and they hear chatter of North Vietnamese pilots and they hear a name that they don't know and they're not sure how to interpret or write it down. How is it spelled? Something like that. And so what they do is they do their best and they write down the equivalent of what they think it is, which is wrong. And this happens several times, and suddenly this pilot named Tomb or Tune is born out of a badly transcribed set of conversations by ground control or by listening intelligence, the radio intelligence guys. So it's a complete screw up that just happened to line up. The other way is that it could have happened, and we'll explain some, give me a second here, and there's some examples of this, is there are times where they are trying to figure out who's in the air, and whoever it is just isn't giving a name that they can use to assign to them. And so what signals intelligence has